Hi, I'm Jonathan Wright. At least that's what my parents tell me. And we have to believe our parents, don't we? Yeah, most of us do. And according to the University of Michigan, I happen to be Dr. Wright as I went to the University of Michigan Medical School. Part of what's influenced what I do, working with folks to improve health and to maintain health, comes from a background in anthropology at Harvard University, where, I also went to school and escaped after 4 years to go to medical school, but I did learn a few useful things about staying healthy there also. Well, at the University of Michigan, we were educated very much in all those wonderful modern surgical and diagnostic procedures, but we were also educated, in something which has really held up progress in medical science for approximately a century now, and that's called the use of patent medicines, which are also known as drugs. They're also known as pharmaceuticals, using those in healthcare. And that really has been a problem because they're not really health care. For example, have you ever heard of drugging somebody to health? Probably not. Not going to work too well. Well, anyway, I'm here to introduce Green Medicine Newsletter. Now, certainly I've been writing a newsletter for a long time, and in fact I started writing for Prevention magazine, a monthly column, in 1976. That went on until 1986, and then Let's Live magazine, which was the second greatest in natural magazine circulation after Prevention, and that went on until 1996, when I started another publication called a newsletter instead of a magazine, and wrote that every month, once again, until 2005. Well, we've had a brief hiatus here in newsletters. I won't exactly explain why, but Green Medicine Newsletter is now the fourth publication I'll be writing for, and I expect to be writing for it for a good long time. Now, it's a newsletter that explains how we can become healthy if we're not, and how we can stay healthy for as long as we possibly can, extending not only longevity, but healthy longevity, which some of us call health span, and some of us don't too, but I just thought I'd mention that. So, what is the approach that Green Medicine will be taking? It's the same approach that medicine hopefully will be taking before the end of the 21st century. And that is taking a look at the human body and all of its components. What are they? Well, let's see. There's protein and fat and carbohydrate and amino acids and essential fatty acids and vitamins and minerals and water. A lot of water, we all know that. And all the other substances the body is made up of naturally, and they all aren't patentable. Oh dear. And that's why they're just not so popular these days yet with, let's call it conventional medicine, because we can't hang a patent on them, and they can't be sold for a very large price, which unfortunately seems to be the point of pharmaceutical medicine. You've heard the stuff about $1,000 a pill? Now, our bodies are made up of the things I mentioned. They also have been affected by at least the last 300,000 or 400,000 years by the substances and energies of planet Earth. And I should have mentioned that our bodies are made up of energies too, entirely natural energies. In fact, that's what the science of homeopathy works on, is natural energies. And there's other ways of working with energies too. Now, if our bodies are made of those things and something goes wrong, wouldn't you think that we would use the substances out of which our bodies are made and the energies of which our bodies are made to repair those bodies and to maintain health? After all, if you've got an old Chevy truck, do you happen to repair it with new parts from Toyotas? No, you go looking for Chevy parts that will fit that old Chevy truck. And if you don't, it's not going to run properly. If our bodies aren't working properly, we look for the substance and the energy, at least we should, that makes up the body. Unfortunately, conditioning in medical schools has been to turn to patentable molecules. Now, you probably know that to get a patent, it cannot occur in nature, which means we're trying to fix natural bodies with unnatural substances. Does that make any sense? Probably not. Not at all. Where did I get this approach? Well, it's not original with me, please. It's been around for centuries. It's just we've lost sight of it in the last century. Where did I get it? Since, I did grow up in the last century and went to medical school that taught the use of unnatural substances in natural bodies. Yes, they did. Well, let's see. I had 1 hour, I did say 1 hour, of education on vitamins and minerals in medical school. Oh, no, that didn't do it. But I did have some background from that anthropology at Harvard University, which showed that people who lived in areas of the world where everything they ate at that time was entirely from nature, nothing artificial, no patentable substances, why they didn't get the very large rate of type 2 diabetes. They didn't get cancers. They didn't get all of what are called the diseases of Western civilization. I knew that, but my medical school sure didn't tell me much about that. So I got out of medical school and went into what's called an internship. And during that time, yes, under supervision, all the interns work with the individuals who come into either the clinic or the hospital. And one day, a woman came into the hospital, and she said she'd had, for the last 7 or 8 years, terrific leg cramps. And yes, she had been checked for calcium, and that wasn't the problem. And I looked in her record, and she'd been given every patent medicine that you can possibly be given. And only one of them, which made her ears ring, was able to control the cramps. I said, well, ma'am, what can I do for you? You've used everything that we've told you here at this particular clinic and hospital, and thank you for doing that, but it hasn't helped much. She says, no, I don't want to ask you anymore. Although I'd not seen her before, she met us as an organization. She says, I got this book here, and she pulled out a book, and it says that sometimes vitamin E stops leg cramps. I said, oh, well, why are you asking me? They've got vitamin E down at the natural food store. You could try it. And remember, this is early 1970s, like my kids say, back in the dark ages. She says, oh, but FDA, who I like to call Los Federales, because that's about the level they're on, FDA tells us that we might die from fat-soluble vitamins. And vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin. I just want to make sure it's safe. I said, look, one thing they told me in medical school in that 1 hour is that it's possible to overdose on vitamin A and D, but nobody has ever achieved a vitamin E overdose that hurt them much, or any. She said, that's all I wanted to know. I said, well, okay. She says, I think I'll go get some vitamin E. I never saw that lady again. Now, people who've been in practice in medicine for a while know that sometimes somebody will come in whose purpose, whether they know it or not, is to teach the doctor something. Yeah. And she did. She called the medical assistant about 6 weeks later and says, I want you to tell the doctor that I haven't had any leg cramps for the last 3 weeks, and all I did was take vitamin E and I chucked all that other medication down the toilet. And I thought, well, geez, that's something I didn't learn in medical school, did I? So I went out and got a copy of the book, because I'd had the good sense to remember the title. And that book, oh my goodness, it had all kinds of footnotes and references to the medical literature. Gee, they didn't teach me that. So next time somebody came in with a problem that hadn't been solved in several years of checking back and forth with doctors at the clinic I was working at, I told her, would you please excuse me? And I went in the next room where I happened to have a copy of that book. That's what the doctor's doing sometimes when they leave the room, is looking up what to do for you. I looked in the book and it said vitamin B6 would fix her problem. And it had 3 footnotes to the scientific literature, too. So I came back and told her, look, I don't know if this will work, but I've read that vitamin B6 might help. she says, how much shall I take? And I wrote it down for her, and she went and got herself some vitamin B6. And she too called back. This time it took 2 months, and she said, look, I haven't had that problem, which happened to be nausea induced by higher dose birth control pills at the time. I haven't had that problem since about 5 days after starting the vitamin B6, she told the assistant. Okay, at that point I learned that there was a large hole in my medical education, and these vitamins really could work if you knew what you're doing. And not only that, there's all kinds of science behind it. So, the internet didn't exist in the 1970s. I made a heck of a lot of trips to the medical library here at the University of Washington. I started looking all this stuff up, and oh my goodness, it was in science journals, but nobody was applying it because, once again, we didn't learn it in medical school, and not only that, it wasn't patentable. I know I keep saying that, but that has a lot to do with why natural medicine isn't mainstream at this time. So, by now, a partner of mine, Dr. Alan Gaby, and I have accumulated about 60,000, I am not kidding you, remember it's been since 1973, about 60,000 medical journal papers, first in just on paper form until we both learned to use computers in the 1990s, and now another 30 to 40,000, and we have close to 100,000 medical journal articles, which, believe it or not, we've actually read between the two of us on file, either electronically or on paper. So there's a lot of science behind this, but the basic principle is if it's a part of the human body, a molecular part, an energetic part, then it's probably much safer to work with than something which, when you see the ad on television, tells you how you might get sick or die if you take their patent medicine. So that is the approach. It's science-based natural medicine. Very, very seriously science-based, and my, does it work well. Don't have time to tell you all the ways it works well here, but that's what's going to be appearing in Green Medicine. Now, Green Medicine will be published by the Alliance for Natural Health. A little bit about Alliance for Natural Health and my relationship to it. Let's see. It starts with a raid by a Los Federales. I'm kidding? No, I'm not kidding. Our clinic was raided by Los Federales from FDA at gunpoint. And they came in and seized all of our vitamin B12 and our B-complex and some other intravenous natural substances. I am not kidding. May of 1992. Very fortunately, they managed to create enough public uproar. A couple of things happened. One of them being a lot of letters to the Congress. And the other one was that something called the American Association for Preventive Medicine was started. And the American Association for Preventive Medicine was actually morphed, as our kids and grandkids say, into the Alliance for Natural Health a few years later. But Alliance for Natural Health has done more than when the organization started. It was mostly doctors, a few people who were interested who weren't doctors. Alliance for Natural Health is now the #1 advocate for the natural approach to medicine in our country. And for those of you who aren't members of Alliance for Natural Health, I'd really recommend it, because natural health care is under attack regularly by Los Federales. Even things that don't do any harm. Right now, because of all of the restrictions that Los Federales have put on compounding pharmacies, I can't even keep a safe vial of vitamin B12 in my office to work with for patients. And no, can't do that anymore. You have to write the patient prescription, they have to go off and get it, they have to come on back. Nobody ever OD'd on vitamin B12. But that's just one of multiple things that Los Federales are trying to do to shut down natural medicine. The raid on our clinic didn't work. We opened up a week later, and we're back doing what we should do, helping people get better in as safe a way as possible, much safer than patent medicines, much safer. The Alliance for Natural Health has agreed to publish Green Medicine Newsletter. Yep, that's the name. I didn't mention it before. Now I probably should have. Green medicine is the approach I've been talking about. Sounds awfully environmentalist and climate change and all of that. No, it's not. It has to do with nature and health, and that's that. But it is green medicine. It's going to be coming out in a digital version and an on-paper version. Now, the precursor organization to Alliance for Natural Health got started because of a raid on our clinic where they seized all of our B vitamins. Why? Well, it said right in the affidavit to the judge that our B complex was mislabeled and misbranded because it came from Germany. Oh yes, we bought it from an American distributor who they didn't raid, but it came from Germany. And in German, they had B-Complex, and everybody knows it should be spelled B-Complex, and that constituted mislabeling and misbranding. And our newspapers here called it the Great B Vitamin Bust. It was too. All right. But in the last few years, I've worked closely with the Alliance for Natural Health on issues related to protecting our right to natural health care. Yes, the newsletter is mostly the science, and it's even in English. It's not in Scientese. It's mostly the science, but yes, there is some politics in there, because if we're going to keep ourselves healthy with natural substances and natural energies, we're going to have to keep fighting and fighting and fighting until those folks quit attacking it. Oh my goodness, one vitamin is contaminated and there's a great uproar in the newspapers, and oh my goodness, that natural medicine is dangerous for you. They don't happen to mention that over 100,000 people a year die of regular medicine. Are we attacking that? No. We're coming after the folks who have maybe 1 or 2 adverse reactions a year. Never mind the other 100,000. So, I work with Alliance for Natural Health on science issues and political issues that, according to the experts at the Alliance for Natural Health, should be brought to the public's attention. And the public is me and you, so that we can do something about it. And the Alliance has made it possible to do it with 1 or 2 clicks of your computer. You don't need to put a stamp on anything, write a letter, nothing like that, which we all greatly appreciate. In addition to working with natural substance and natural energy, I also seem to have come up with bioidentical hormone replacement in the early 1980s. Bioidentical means it's identical to what belongs in the body, precisely identical, same molecules, same timing, same route of administration, same everything, but since it's identical to human, no, we don't get it from a bunch of humans. It does start with materials that come from nature and need to be biochemically changed to be identical to human. But as long as they're identical to human, they will work just fine with minimal harm, just like if you have one of those old automobiles like I do, that you put a key in and turn it and the engine turns on. Well, you can take a piece of metal that isn't like that key and get it ground and filed at the hardware store to be key identical. And it works just fine because it's identical to the original. So we also work with bioidentical materials. And that's mentioned in the newsletter too. Well, I've taken enough of your time explaining this and that. I hope you're interested in Green Medicine Newsletter. We keep it in English. For the technically inclined, the footnotes are in there and you can look things up, just like I did in that book that nice lady brought in to ask me if she would die of vitamin E. The footnotes and references were in there, and that sort of launched me into this type of medicine. So if you want to look things up, the footnotes will be in there too. We won't have too many footnotes for the political part, but that's not the major part. It's usually a little bit here and there, sometimes longer if there's a crisis. But you'll mostly be getting solid science-based information about how to become healthy and stay that way, which I'll be writing in conjunction with the publication by the Alliance for Natural Health. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to the Alliance for being the publisher. Bye now.